Have you been told in a meeting that your child is not reading at grade level or where the school would expect them to be? Might have been at a 504 or IEP or student success meeting or even at a parent-teacher conference. You've probably seen all over TikTok, lots of teachers are talking about the fact that kids are reading well below grade level. And if your child has an IEP or 504 or is struggling in school, one of the best ways they can start having some steps to do better is to increase their reading comprehension. I know it sounds wild, but there's a lot of research that shows as children's reading comprehension approaches or is at grade level, all of their academic areas improve. My name is Valerie. I'm a former special education teacher and administrator turned advocate helping and educating families just like yours. And I actually got my master's and focused on reading specifically because it's so interesting how much reading comprehension affects all areas of learning. Because up into third grade, students are learning to read. And after third grade, so fourth grade and beyond, they are learning through reading, often independently. So if they can't read effectively, their learning is compromised. So I'm going to take you quickly through the steps I think you can take to help your child build their reading comprehension outside of school, because the school's probably working on it already. 1, ask the teacher at the meeting what your child's current level is. Don't look at something from a few months ago. Your child might have gained skills. 2, ask your child what they like to read. They might tell you honestly they don't like to read at all. Okay, what's your favorite movie genres? Tell me some of your favorite movies. You'll be able to figure out their genres that they like, and then that can be what you. 3, go to the library with and talk to the librarian about what your child likes to read and what their current level is. Don't sleep on librarians and think you can just do it all through the teacher and AI, which I'll talk about in a second. Your librarians are amazing. They have book recommendations that you wouldn't have thought of, and they are happy to help your children. So it's another adult, not a teacher and not you, who's helping generate a love of reading in your child. This is Michael. I follow him on TikTok. He's so good. But Valerie, we're not near a library. I can't get to a library. We use Levy. Okay, cool. Use ChatGPT or Google Bard to recommend some books for your child to read. Just type in the same information you would have said to the librarian. It'll generate some great things. I thought Google Bard did a better job. 4 or 5, now that your child has a book, go ahead and make sure they have a comfortable place to read in your home and talk about how long they might read. If they hate reading altogether, maybe 5-10 minutes. And hopefully you're building up to 20, maybe 30 minutes a few times a week. You as the caregiver reading in the home is something you shouldn't overlook. So take a minute to sit down and read and make your child aware that you're reading and they can come read near you. Depending on your relationship or the age, they might want to or not, but you're showing a love of reading as well. And then when they're done reading for the day, talk to them about what they read. Ask a basic question. Who's the main character? Ask a bigger question. Why do you think they did what they did? And ask a pro-level question that your child can do if they're accurately understanding what's going on. What do you think would happen next in the book? What makes sense? The idea is not only to help your child build their reading comprehension skills, but also to develop a love of reading or even a strong like of reading. Because there's even research that shows that students who take pleasure in reading and read outside of school, things that are interesting to them, they do better overall in school as well. So we really want to focus on reading and reading comprehension. If you have questions, you can leave them below. I hope this gave you some ideas on how you can support your child's reading, because that will help everything.
The Real Talk Corner. We back. We in the building. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, fighting my way through the darkness where the wicked don't rest. Conscious aware, truth I dare, shield tied to my chest. My tenacity can put these motherfuckers to the test. High priestess of fire, alchemistic desire. I say manifest and shit, even when I am tired. You can call me amazing by the bricks I've been laying, but you'll never call me lazy, cause my vibes are devastating. In the league of my own, spitting real talk energy. I know a little something about a thing called synergy. This is already throw a sending masses awakening. Listen up, cause we about to set your mind, body, and soul free. Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of the Real Talk Corner. I am your host, Ariana, the Quantum Healer, in the building. Today's episode is going to be really neat. We're talking about ADHD, dyslexia, if I can even say it, learning disabilities. And I get to speak with a very awesome doctor who has created not only a place where you could go to learn, your children can get tutoring, but is paving the way for what's necessary and needed out here in what we want to think of education and learning, right? Because we look at public school and we're kind of like, oh, this is the bar, and the bar is very low, especially after COVID, very low bar. So I really do commend her in just continuing to be in this space to provide an area where people can go. So, and not only just for children, for adults. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring her on the show is because a lot of you guys who have watched me over the years, who I've worked with you, complain about ADHD. One of the top things that you complain about, even as an adult, struggling with. So I thought it was very important to get someone on here who can talk about it, can tell you, and then tell you how they're offering. But you do need to take the first step to reach out for the assistance. Okay. So I just wanted to talk about just some stats about ADHD real quick, because it is, I don't want to say a growing trend, but it's definitely very common. And it's not just, oh, you're ADHD, so something's wrong with you. It's actually very common with people who are neurodivergent. Okay. And sometimes you need more stimulation and more stuff just to not put on your plate, but to get your mind working in the correct way. So people like Dr. Levy, who have their tutoring set up to where they can identify and assist you. And again, it's not just for children, but if you do have children that are struggling, you definitely want to look into this. So just a couple stats. Right now, children rates of ADHD remains, it's stable from 2017 to 2022. So about 10% of children are with ADHD. And that's just what's been reported. There are a lot of you out there that have not got your children tested or even looked into this because of the stigma behind it. Now, the growth from like 1997 to 2016, definitely 6% to 10% is a growing rate. And I do feel like those numbers would be higher if a lot of people would take the time to understand, because there are a lot of kids that, yeah, they may have ADHD, but that does not scar them for life. Okay. So what couple of the top, if we look national in the US right now, ages 3 to 17. Okay. We're going to look at that. The 5 states are like the highest rates right now. So Louisiana is one of them at 16%. Okay. We have Rhode Island as number 2 at 15%. You have South Carolina coming in at 15%. You have Maine coming in at number 4 at 15%. And you have West Virginia coming in at 15% at number 5. Now, does that mean there are no other, high stats for other states? No, that doesn't mean that. That definitely is just giving you some kind of like just a look at maybe where you're at, where it is a little bit tougher, should I say. So hopefully you guys like the conversation between me and Dr. Levy. Hopefully you guys do look at this as an opportunity. And I know that financially that will be a thing because, the crisis, inflation and everything, but you always have to take that step back and look at what is more important. And I do talk about it in our conversation, but I did pay for tutoring for my daughter. I feel like these are things that are very important for the growth and stability of your child. And if you do not put the time and money into it to assist them, especially if you cannot, most of us parents cannot, we need a professional, then you have to look at what are you really providing for your child. Don't let them continue to struggle. And it brings such a self-conscious and depression and all of those things that we talk about. I tell you guys, the mind is a very powerful thing, and you definitely can hinder and hurt your child worse. I was a child who also was ADHD. That was not really a thing when I was a kid. It wasn't really talked about. It wasn't managed. There was no diagnosis. So we basically were just held back, looked at it as we had learning disabilities, but it was just needing the right people to work with us. So do your kids a service, not a disservice. Look into these things. Don't just deem your child slow, behavioral problems and things like that. There's so many avenues out here that can assist you and your children. Yeah, it's took me a long time to work on a lot of my things to get in places where I can function correctly without being all over the place.
Parents of kids that are struggling in school, just those parents. So 20 years from now, they're not going to be in school. You didn't get them special education testing. You dealt with somebody that was a total jerk at the school and wouldn't give them testing. And that was the outcome. Because you stopped fighting because it was hard. You stopped fighting because you might lose your job. You stopped fighting because you didn't struggle with your other two kids. You stopped fighting because it was uncomfortable. Is that what you're going to say to your adult children that didn't get the special ed services they needed? Of course that's not what you're going to say, because you're going to get them the services they need. Let me tell you which year of special education fighting for your student is going to be easy. None. It's none. Get them the services they need so they can be successful adults.
Again, you want to be the power source and support system for your child as well as yourself. Many of you guys talk about struggling from ADHD. You can't meditate. You can't sit and write, in your journals. You can't sit and get your thoughts together. Maybe you need to reach out. Maybe you need to reach out to one of these programs and say, what can I do for myself? Because we talk about therapy and we talk about psychiatrists and we talk about holistic healing, but sometimes you have to focus on strategies of the mind. And so that is what the topic is for today. And again, hopefully, I always hope that you guys take something away from the conversations and build upon that and grow. I did want to share, though, one thing with you guys far as her website goes. So this is a video from her webpage. And I just want you guys to kind of listen to what they're talking about and the things that are offered. And I think this is amazing. Again, I feel like there aren't a lot of people doing this. It's much needed out here. And I love that she was, again, willing to come and speak with us. So let me play this real quick for you guys.
As students across the tri-state struggle with learning at home, academic tutors are becoming VIPs.
We really try to engage the kids, keep it fun, while at the same time, of course, building their skills.
Dr. Emily Levy runs one of the most popular services.
EBL Coaching is a tutoring organization that specializes in providing one-on-one tutoring to students as young as pre-K, and we go all the way up through the adult level.
But since 2004, Levy's business has relied on this, student and teacher working side by side, which is impossible, of course, in a pandemic.
It definitely did change the business.
Suddenly, learning had to happen through a screen.
We're going to start with some word reading. I wasn't quite sure how it was going to go, but it's actually been going really well.
I love how they also I love how they transitioned with COVID, and I think that speaks volumes of the character and the determination behind them.
It's giving that structure to the kids that many of them are lacking right now, giving them that consistency and really continue to empower them to build their academic skills, feel confident.
EBL is even finding ways to do multi-sensory tutoring with the help of parents for little kids.
Like colored sand for forming letters, mini whiteboards. We integrate learning games. We also have a great rewards program that we use. We really try to engage the kids, keep it fun, while at the same time, of course, building their skills.
Most of all, Levy says flexibility is key.
The original form of the word is try.
We work with any kind of platform that they have access to, whether it's Zoom or Skype or any platform whatsoever. We work with some underprivileged kids that receive funding by the New York City Department of Education. We've actually been able to provide tablets to some of those who need it for the purpose of tutoring and weren't able to get them. So we're really trying to reach out and do everything we can to keep this consistency and keep the learning going for these kids.
Indeed, Levy says EBL will do whatever it takes.
Many families are starting to inquire about going back to one-on-one tutoring, even if it's outside with a mask and gloves, which we're able to provide. So we're hoping that will start to happen soon for some of the kids who really need it.
And Dr. Levy says they are accepting new students, so you can get more information by checking out their website. It's eblcoaching.com.
What else can I say? So go ahead and watch the interview with me and Dr. Levy. And again, I do hope this brings you guys some information. Trust me, step up to the plate, challenge yourself to be the guiding force to change your children's lives, to change your life. And today I have a special guest, Dr. Emily Levy. For just go into a little bit of your background, what you do, and we will go from there.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today. I am the founder and director of EBL Coaching, which is a one-on-one tutoring program that specializes in providing tutoring to students who have special education needs, including students with learning disabilities, ADHD, autism, really kind of all types of special education students. A little bit more of a background on myself. I actually grew up in the field of special education. My mother was the founder of a school for students with learning disabilities down in Florida, which is where I grew up. So I spent so much of my childhood working at her school, being trained in various methods, and of course, really watching these kids thrive with the right support. And then eventually I received my undergraduate degree from Brown University. I then received my master's degree in special education and my doctorate degree in general education. And then eventually formed what is now EBL Coaching, where we have a wonderful team of specialists who specialize in providing one-on-one tutoring.
I absolutely love that. So I know that you mentioned that your mom, so you had like this influence from her. What made you like, because not all children get influenced and want to go down the same path or get into the same kind of field. What made you like this called you like this is something I'm interested in and it's calling me? When did that happen?
That's actually a great question. After growing up, working at my mother's school and being exposed to special education instruction, I actually felt like I did not want to live in my mom's shadow and wanted to kind of carve my own path. So after college, of all fields, I actually went into finance in New York City. I did 2 years of finance. I learned a lot from it, but it wasn't for me. I think I really always thought back to my days of helping children, watching children thrive. And so I kind of pivoted and did a 180. And then I went back and I started working with kids myself. And then I got my master's degree and my doctorate degree in education. But I really almost had to try carving my own path and doing a different field to then realize what my calling was and how much more moving and satisfying it was to really work with children and to help them excel.
Right, right. I love that. So go into I know you cover a lot. So it's not just disabilities. You mentioned ADHD. Where do people just find you? Do you get referrals from other people? How does that work?
Sure, it's a combination. Some people find us through our website, through Google, through our social media channels. There's a lot of referrals from schools, referrals from word of mouth, from parents. So I would say many different ways, but really our specialty is helping students starting as young as the pre-K level, and we actually go all the way through the adult level to build their core academic skills, reading, writing, math, study skills. So really all different types of academic needs.
Mm. So definitely like the assistance needed. So whatever they're needing, not necessarily just if you have a disability or what's considered a disability, correct?
Exactly. It's whatever each individual student needs, meaning some students may have a diagnosis of dyslexia and strictly need reading support, but others may not necessarily have a diagnosis and just really struggle with writing. And we're certainly able to help them with that as well. So everything is just very much catered to the needs of each individual student and what they need at that given time.
Okay, okay. Um, I just when I was reading, just going through the website, just kind of looking at it, and with my daughter, I had got her tutoring. I think she was about in the fourth grade, and a lot of people, I think they would look at it like, oh my God, this is expensive, or this is a lot, but it helped her so much at the time, just just to get ahead. So I believe in these type of programs because I've seen how they work. I've seen how, especially public school, we know public school is not um, on the level that we would like the children to be taught, should I say. So I do believe in these kind of programs, and I think that they're wonderful. The fact that this is another one, because you don't find a lot of these, though. There aren't many out there. And then, when my daughter was younger, of course, it was, we had to go there. So, social media was so different and internet was very different back then. So we didn't have the access. So do you do online? Is this something that they can do online virtually?
Absolutely. We do both local in-person tutoring, and then we do a lot of virtual tutoring as well. And we've really developed a lot of great technology and resources for the virtual tutoring so that the student and the tutor can really engage as though they were there in person, which really just allows more access to students that may not necessarily have research-based multisensory instructors in their local area. This really allows us to reach out to so many more students.
Right, right. Awesome. Did you have any major challenges on this journey coming to this space? What were some of your challenges to get here?
There's always challenges. I think anyone who says that everything is rosy when they run their own
Right.
business is not being real. There's definitely a lot, and I think that's really what's helped me grow and get stronger and more knowledgeable, is really just tackling those challenges and moving forward from them. There are many. I think, sometimes it's challenging to match a parent's expectations with what I feel is right for a child, whether it's
Mm,
frequency of tutoring, whether it's what I think we need to focus on, or what the tutor feels that we need to focus on. And then the parent has ideas on their own, and kind of matching that sometimes can be challenging. And it's a matter of using finesse to empower the parent, but also really try to do what's right for the student. So that's just one example, but there's definitely just, lots of challenges to overcome. And I think when anyone has a business or a program that they run.
oh, definitely. Definitely.
And, no,
I'm like there's no success without failure. That is how you learn. You have to have some failed aspects, because that's the learning you can take away from it. Okay, that didn't work. Let me do it this way. Or, you just try to go a different route. What would be, maybe I would say, some of the greatest things that you have taken away from this? Because this is a pretty not just a short journey that you've been on, especially going to school, especially tackling those degrees. This has been a long journey. So what are some of the good things that you can say that you took on from here that really touched you?
well, I feel very grateful that I have a career where I'm really able to help so many children and adults, really, for that matter. And I think when I first started, I was tutoring students myself, and there was just only so many kids that I could help when I was the only one doing the tutoring. So I was able to just very organically bring on other tutors, grow the program, continue to expand to a point where we're able to help so many students now, and really give them the tools academically, give them the self-confidence to really help them thrive. And there's so many stories that parents reach out and they tell me, oftentimes in tears, that their child was struggling
Mm.
across the board, academically, socially, emotionally, and then receiving this right support completely changed their lives. And so many of them go to college, have great careers. So when I hear those stories from parents, it's just music to my ears, and it's really why I do what I do for a living.
Right, right. I think the point that you just said, far as like you doing it and only being able to help is, a certain amount, because you're one person. So is that where you were just like, okay, I have to expand. I need to expand this part of the business.
Exactly. And I would say that was probably another challenge. This was in the beginning, was really giving up that almost control, so to speak, of putting trust into someone else to do what I thought only I could do. And I remember one of my first stories was in New York City. There was a family of a middle school student who needed math tutoring. And I brought on a math tutor. And I remember accompanying that tutor to the student's home because I was so afraid of letting them go on their own and what would happen if they didn't do something right or it was a failure. And so I kind of that was my baby step way of just just kind of not fully releasing control, still being a part of it until I felt like I was ready to let other people. And now it's a lot of trust. It's a lot of putting trust, bringing people on board who I trust are excellent at what they do, and trusting that they're going to do the right thing and help these children, and letting go of control in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that the control that is definitely a issue, because it's like your baby, like this is your baby. You've birthed this, you've created this, and now it's like I have to, all right, let this person in, hope that they're going to do the right thing. But it sounds like it's been successful. So
I would say it definitely has. It's been gratifying, it's been successful, and it's been a great way to just help so many hundreds of students.
right. Do you feel like programs like yours or what you offer is something that is needed? Do you see like, is it more needed now than ever? Do you feel like there's a change in where parents are reaching out like, hey, we need this kind of assistance and help?
I think there's a huge need for this kind of specialized tutoring, particularly since the pandemic. I think there was so much learning loss of kids who just didn't get the right education. Many of them missed early foundations or critical periods of their academic schooling that just made it that much harder for them to excel moving forward. So I would say there was definitely an uptick since then. But I just think, school in general has become very challenging for a lot of students. There's so much problem solving and critical thinking involved. And without those building blocks, without the foundations, it just becomes that much more challenging as students progress through school.
Definitely, especially get to the college level. You're like, what am I doing?
Yes. Oh, yes.
What am I doing? I'm lost. Um, I wanted to just go and touch on just the importance behind following, not just because you found your, and I think everyone goes to this question of, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing in life? And everyone I talk to, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, I found it on my path. I found it doing something else, and boom, this purpose hits. And can you explain the feeling of that, of like, not, I don't think we ever really know when it first comes in. It's kind of later on, you look back like, yeah, this is my purpose. But what was that for you to say, this is the purpose?
I think that's a tricky question, but I think for me, it was almost about going into something that wasn't my calling and wasn't my purpose, to realize that I needed to pivot back to what I had experienced that was very motivating and moving for me. So sometimes it's a matter of a little bit of trial and error of trying something, and maybe it's a disaster and it was so wrong for you, but that helps you to then pivot back and find something else until you really realize that this is what brings me happiness and joy. And then there's other people that do a job and it pays the bills and they're happy. Maybe it's not their absolute calling, but maybe during after work hours, they do things that bring them happiness. So I think everyone's journey is a little bit different, but I do think oftentimes there's a little bit of trial and error before finding what really feels right for you.
Definitely. Definitely. Um, what One of the things I wanted to touch real quick was, for any parent who is struggling, I think a lot of parents are struggling, right? They don't know how to even help their children in school with reading or any of these things. What would you tell them to kind of, and I think there's a lot of embarrassment behind that. So they just shut down. I've seen that a lot, where parents just kind of like they don't even want to deal with it. What would you tell them so that they can get past that part to get their children the proper help if they cannot be that for them?
Sure. Well, first off, I find that the dynamic between a parent trying to help their child is, I hate to say it, not always that successful, because it's just a different kind of relationship. And there are many parents who are teachers, sometimes special education teachers themselves, and they have all of the tools to help their child, but they just can't work with their child. So they shouldn't be embarrassed by that. It's very common. I hear it all the time. I think what's key is really reaching out to their child's teacher, ideally in the beginning of the school year, and really developing that line of communication and really encouraging the teacher to let them know if any challenges come up. Are they struggling with reading? Are they not able to focus in class? And if that's the case, either seeing what the school has available in terms of resources, which may involve having an evaluation done so that there's mandated services that they'll receive. And then if not, then oftentimes outside tutoring really does help, because it's not just someone who's really qualified to help their child, but someone who's not mom or dad, who can develop that kind of third party relationship. And oftentimes that actually helps the relationship between the parent and their child when they're not the one trying to educate their own child.
Right, right. Yeah. Even me, I struggled with, especially with the math. As soon as it was like math homework, I'm like, and they taught it different. So I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to do this.
Yep.
This is above my pay grade.
Yeah. Math is very different now, the way it's taught.
Yeah, it's different. You're like, so I know a lot of parents get into the struggle of even trying to help. It's like, I don't know how to help. And then the dynamic with parent and child is definitely different. What about parents who struggle? I think you mentioned like the evaluation at school, and some parents do struggle with having that type of evaluation done on their child as if it will mark them forever, as if it will, kind of crucify them. And I think IEP, something like that, they call it. What do you say to that? So parents cannot think that their child is going to be now demeaned in some way because they had an evaluation.
Sure. Well, what I'll say to that is that there are many kids that struggle and really need the extra services and the extra support in order to help them thrive academically, to build their self-confidence, to make them feel good about themselves. And sometimes going through an evaluation and getting an IEP in place, which kind of details what their challenges are and what their services should be. There are many kids that really need that in order to thrive. And I almost feel like it's sort of doing a disservice to your child if a parent has the ability to get those services for their child and they're not doing it because of some stigma they think it might create. My opinion is you're really stopping your child from reaching their potential and from thriving when they otherwise could if they were to receive the right support.
Right, right. Now you work with children. Do you work with adults also?
We do, yes. More children, but some adults as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like we have a very strong slew of adults with ADHD, and it is something that I come across constantly. I hear it all the time. It's like them getting their mind. What would you say for them to even like maybe think about them getting help so that they're not stuck and all over the place and, disorganized in their lives?
Sure. Well, there are many adults we work with who have ADHD and really struggle with what we call executive functioning skills like planning, organization, time management, task initiation. And weakness in those skills can really affect all aspects of life. It can affect their ability to hold a job. It can affect their ability to send emails in a timely manner. It can affect their relationships. So really, it can actually be very life-changing to have the right tools and to implement those tools to build those skills. It can really help them so much professionally as well as personally.
Right. Now, I know there's misconceptions with it as if it's deemed like, oh, you're ADHD, this is what it is, and you'll forever struggle. Would you agree with that or?
Well, I don't think it goes away. I think it is same thing with dyslexia, other learning disabilities. You can learn strategies to combat some of the challenges, but I don't think you're really cured. It never really goes away. But there's so many great tools and strategies now, even apps and tools you can use on your phone that can help with time management and organization. So I think it's just really important to constantly bring in new strategies, find strategies that work, and really just learn to manage it because it doesn't really go away, unfortunately.
Right, right. So a little bit of reprogramming, a little bit of effort, and you utilizing the tools of today.
Yeah, exactly.
I believe in these programs, you guys. So I will have your links and stuff in the description so that they can go check out the website and just kind of look at your background. Anything else you want them to know about the process or what you do? If someone's never heard of tutoring, like what you do, what would you tell them?
Well, I think what's key and what's unique about what we do is that all of the tutoring is very much custom tailored to the needs of each student. It's all research-based and multisensory in terms of the methodologies that we use. So it's really highly specialized tutoring. It's not generic tutoring. It's not homework help. But if a child is or an adult is struggling with a skill or a set of skills, or they happen to have a diagnosis and have challenges associated with that, that's where we can really help them either locally in person or virtually. I would definitely encourage them to look at our website, eblcoaching.com. I've written a lot of articles on various topics relating to what I described, and there's lots of information about what we do as well, along with our social media channels on Facebook, on Instagram, and TikTok.
Yeah, I definitely will have those also in the description. You guys can definitely go take a look, go check it out. And if you're struggling, I would recommend doing it. Like I said, I did it for my daughter and it really did help her. Not necessarily your program, but a program similar. And it did help her excel, especially with reading, because she fell behind different schools, different states, and they were behind the other state that we had moved to. And so we needed to catch her up basically on where she was a level. And I think a lot of times we don't even realize that part of just simple things of relocation to a different place and the school systems being different, the levels being different. And then your child is now stuck kind of like, okay, what do I do? How do I get up to where I'm supposed to be without feeling bad or feeling horrible about where I am? You know?
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I thank you for coming on and just sharing this with our viewers. Again, I'll have your contact stuff in the bottom, and then they can go and look at it and look it up. So not just children, you guys, adults also, you guys can look into this and definitely restructure what we think we know. We think we're stuck. We think we're adults. We're stuck in our ways and we don't have help, but there is help out there.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This has been a great conversation and I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, you guys, until next time, bye.